You know, I think on some level, I've gotta be a self-destructive person. You guys can see it, right? Last week, I pissed off a ton of right-wingers for my anti-Trump stances. Legitimate criticisms too, don't get me wrong, but lots of irrational anger. I temporarily had a huge target on my back from the right, and now I have a huge target on my back from the left, for something else that I've said. This is how you know I'm actually a real centrist. No real politics today. This time we're diving into the cesspool known as Twitter. Here's where it started. This character here, FemK dropped this viral post. Realizing that sex doesn't have to be this sacred, all-important thing, and can instead just be an expression of affection between friends who are dear to one another, is honestly the most life-changing realization for me, surpassed only by realizing that I'm a girl. I haven't realized it yet. But okay, this is clearly a post about leftist non-monogamy. I may have done a video about this in the past, but I don't remember what it is. There's this section of progressivism that views monogamous relationships as oppressive and problematic, and true political praxis is fucking all your friends, and opening your sex life up to everyone, basically. Oh, but only if you're the right type of person, of course, because this post is for the lesbians. You'll earn this privilege once you learn to stop treating the women you fuck like objects. Of course, we all know that she does this. When you have a myriad of casual partners, you necessarily must treat them like objects on some level, because you lack that prerequisite deep relationship in order not to. At the end of the day though, this is just safe horny again. Your sexuality evil, their sexuality good. Plus, I know you're trans lady, but this is really some male-brained behavior that you probably should have transitioned out of by now, so maybe you gotta up the hormone dose or something. My friend Taftad responded to her with, "I'm convinced queer relationships are notoriously messy because the same people who can't navigate who does the dishes are convinced they can ignore basic dating advice that has existed for literally millennia." Which is pretty much true, yeah. FemK responded to her with, "Blind appeals to tradition are to be expected from a tradwife LARPer." And honestly, that comment just sounds like passing jealousy, frankly. I jumped in with my own take. Appeals to tradition are, well, appealing, once you realize that tradition is shorthand for the distilled wisdom of millions of people who came before you, all of whom were just as smart as you, and they probably figured a few things out, so why not at least consider their ideas? This is the classically conservative Burkean position. Each man's private stock of reason is small, after all, and that means that you are finite and limited, and there is an upper bound in the number of thoughts you can think before you die, even though that number is very high. So for some of the more common things in life, you can save yourself the trouble, and the brainpower, by at least considering the blueprint of people who successfully came through here before. It's a completely reasonable position, which unsurprisingly, FemK didn't agree with. "This thing was done for generations, so you're stupid to question it," is an unbelievably terrible argument, and if you think otherwise, you're a very unserious person. Now, I don't know exactly how many brainworms it takes wiggling around inside of her head to convert "why not consider the ideas laid out in tradition before discarding them" into "this thing was done for generations and you're stupid to question it" within her mind, but she's gotta have RFK beat on that front, because my god, this is some wild conflation. Now, I'm not the only one who thinks this person is a schizo, because tons of people have hopped on to point out how abnormal it is to just casually have sex with all of your friends, like it won't change the texture of that friendship. Many people, not just me, understand that treating intimacy so casually does have downstream effects. I'm not saying you should be legally barred from doing it or something. I'm saying, using another snappy quote again, this time from Alexis Carrel, that man is both the marble and the sculptor. When you do something in the world, it's not just the world that changes, you also change. You are the sum total of your habits. C.S. Lewis too, good and evil both increase at compound interest. You know, it really is telling that only conservative thinkers talk about the construction of a high-quality character and how our behaviors and choices guide that process. But these people aren't conservatives. They think conservatism is Nazism, of course, because rules, restrictions, discipline, sacrifice, these are apparently fascist ideals, despite also being a core part of the human experience, as well as necessary for personal growth. And without them, in their absence, we arrive at FemK paradoxical position in exclaiming that sex isn't sacred, but also simultaneously important enough that getting butt-fucked by tons of people is so essential to her personality that she has to take constant medication in order to not get AIDS. Oh yeah, that's right. One person said in the reply to the original tweet, "Aren't we in a new AIDS epidemic or something? Y'all are seriously tripping." And FemK answered that with, "I literally take pills every day that make it so I can't contract HIV. And this is the moment where I became the left's public enemy number one, at least for right now." I quote tweeted this with one of my favorite reaction images, a SpongeBob fish, with the question, "You need to take pills and not contract HIV? You can't just not have sex with people who have HIV?" You know, that seemed like a reasonable question to ask for me. It's actually quite easy for me to not have sex with people who have HIV. I'm in a monogamous relationship. I don't have it, and Naomi doesn't have it. There you go, problem solved. But oh my god, you would have thought I was a mass fucking murderer, dude. The amount of salt this simple question unearthed is probably the largest amount I've ever personally accomplished on Twitter. The tweet is sitting at 8 million views at the time of recording. Tons of quote tweets of angry progs screaming at being exposed to the sun. Keep in mind that FemK is somebody who openly admits to having tons of casual sex with her entire friend group, which is fine, that's her choice. But I guess she just couldn't say no to the HIV positive ones in there. That would be quite discriminatory after all. So I guess you gotta get on PrEP. By the way, PrEP is a pill that was officially recommended by the CDC in 2021 to prevent HIV transmission. If you take the pill before encountering somebody with HIV, you reduce the risk of acquiring HIV yourself through sex by up to 99%, and through needles by 74%. So it's become the go-to drug for people who engage in risky behavior to take. The downside of PrEP is that long-term use comes with a low but not insignificant chance of kidney failure, and also the drug is pretty expensive. Some places, like Canada and some American states, will pay for your daily PrEP pill through a government healthcare service, even though 1 month of pills can often run over $1,000, depending on location and brand. For example, this article from 2022 is about a gay man in Texas whose healthcare coverage stopped covering PrEP, and how he began to panic because being on PrEP required that he take kidney tests every 3 months in order to use the drug safely, and without coverage, those would cost him up to $15,000. Now, I don't know about you guys, but for me personally, if I was engaging in such ridiculously risky sexual behavior that in order to continue to do so, I would have to pay tens of thousands of dollars for preventative care in order to ensure that all of the gay loads of cum I take into my asshole don't infect me with HIV, well, I just wouldn't do that. Maybe I'm built differently, but anonymous casual sex is not worth what these people are paying for it. And it's certainly not worth what the taxpayer is paying for it. And that's what I was getting at with my tweet. You don't actually have to fuck those friends of yours who have HIV, FemK. That is a choice you can make. Due to this whole kerfuffle, I was temporarily locked out of my account after some mass spamming by these retards, some of them calling me AIDS phobic. And you know what? I think I'll just bite the bullet on that one, dog. I am a true AIDS phobe. I do not want to catch AIDS, simple as that. I'll leave a link to my tweet in the description in case you want to check out all the replies for yourself. There are thousands of them, but they do tend to repeat themselves and can be bundled into a few groups. Let's talk about the common ones. 1. Not all people get HIV through being promiscuous or sharing needles. This is of course true. Some people are born with it, or they're raped, or a partner lied to them, or maybe a drug-addicted hobo in the street loses it and stabs them with a needle or something, I don't know. There are many ways you can catch HIV, and sometimes it just is not your fault. I have nothing but sympathy for those people. If they want a relationship and they use drugs like PrEP to be able to have one, that's fine by me. But considering the person that FemK is, and what I'm replying to, I am clearly not talking about these fringe cases. 2. Dev, you're just an incel. The only reason you're saying this is because you're jealous that no one will fuck you. And to this I have to say, I'm a public figure, guys. My relationship status is well known. Don't worry, positive lad, HIV rights activist. I'm not single, and I will never ever have sex with anybody who's HIV positive. Your life is thankfully alien to me, and I never have to worry about your predicament. 3. If you think being straight is a safeguard, think again. Straight people can catch HIV too. Of course, straight people can also be degenerates. They can slut it up, they can share needles. I never said otherwise. But you know what else I never said? Anything about being gay. Why are you assuming this take is homophobic? I'm talking about having HIV, and if you're conflating that with being gay, that's a problem with you, not me. Hell, there was one guy who actually believed monogamy was a dog whistle for straight. These guys are unironically ridiculously bigoted towards gay people. Like, just call them slurs at this point. Fuck. 4. If you think monogamy is a safeguard, think again. She's gonna cheat on you, bro. I got this one a few times, and each time it was people who desperately wanted to see Naomi go behind my back, which is actually unhinged behavior. Like, I'm just sitting here living a pretty healthy lifestyle, not in terms of being fat, in terms of sexual habits. I personally don't have to think about popping anti-HIV medication in order to have a normal sex life, and these people are out here actually wanting me to be taught a lesson because I'm not a degen and they can't stand to see it. Genuinely bitter, spiteful losers. 5. Dev's take is just abstinence-only education. The school system has failed us. Sometimes there's a weird Ronald Reagan reference in there too. I can't believe I actually have to say this, but the reason an abstinence-only approach doesn't work is because people don't actually do an abstinence-only approach. Again, maybe I'm just built different, but I've actually refused sex before, and believe it or not, I did not find myself suddenly having sex afterward like it was out of my control. Just don't do the destructive behavior is always the first option. Secondary options, like medication to mitigate the effects of the behavior, are good, of course, but not doing the thing is always going to be more effective than taking a pill that reduces the risk of doing the thing. That is just how it is. I'm not talking about abstinence-only education. I'm not making some grand, sweeping, society-wide prescription here. I'm simply saying that due to my life choices, I don't have this problem. And if you wanted, you could make those life choices too. There are a ton of other, smaller self-reports, like the person who was politically opposed to the nuclear family, despite it being clearly better for raising kids in. Or the person who says that it's mean to laugh at people with 4-figure body counts destroying their lives so hard, they have to take fucking anti-HIV pills to keep going. Or the person who said that hygiene was reactionary, that wanting to avoid illness, that seeing the connection between risky behavior and negative outcomes from that risk, basic cause and effect shit, is fascist or reactionary or whatever. Or the person who said that it's easy to commit to multiple partners, no problem you chud, who is nonetheless finding it hard to find one person to commit to. But at the bottom of it all, we have take number 6. Is this really your take? Big yikes. Take your bigoted dick elsewhere. Like I said, it's AIDS phobia, guys. Discrimination against people who have AIDS. It's actually called serophobia, something that I learned as a result of this discourse. And I hate that knowledge is now taking up space in my head. But look at what's actually being said here. It's bigoted of you if you don't want to stick your dick in a pause hole. In my day, bigotry was an irrational hatred of different people for no good reason, like racism or sexism. But you know what? If bigotry in 2024 is not wanting to get fucking AIDS, I guess I gotta be a bigot now. I guess most normal people are. Here's the thing. This one guy said that I was ignorant and judgmental, but he's retarded. He's got it backwards. Judgment is the opposite of ignorance, in many cases. If you're a discerning person, if you've looked at a thing and weighed its pros and cons, and then decided to set it aside as unworthy, you are judgmental, but you're not ignorant. A sense of judgment is what allows you to cut the wheat from the chaff, and the judging process requires you to not be ignorant of what you judge. His actual objection, and the objections of most of these progressives, are that they don't like the concept of discernment to begin with. To be discerning is to be capable of good judgment. It's to have a series of values that you hold, the ability to critically examine what's put in front of you to see if it matches those values, and then the backbone to set aside whatever is unworthy, even if what you're judging is people, and that might make them feel bad. For example, if you're someone who values monogamy and sexual propriety, it's within your morals to look at the range of potential partners and cut out the people who treat sex trivially as unworthy of your consideration. That's fine, by the way. There are other people out there who are more in line with your moral tastes, and they have people out there who are more in line with theirs too. But you should never accept getting browbeaten into giving consent out of some sense of inclusion or equality or anti-discrimination or something. There are areas of life where it's actually appropriate to be maximally discriminated. We're talking areas of personal taste in food, in entertainment, in sex and relationships. When it comes to choosing a partner, it is valid to discriminate based on pretty much every single factor. Sex, gender, religion, political affiliation, medical condition, height, weight. Hell, attractiveness is the ultimate discriminatory variable. Aesthetic preference requires no real justification. It simply is. You just feel it. That is why the HIV activist telling you that your rejection of HIV-positive people is bigoted is the same thing as the trans activist telling you your genital preferences is transphobic. Both of them are, to use a progressive term, kinda rapey. But there is an underlying logic here that goes beyond Twitter people getting ass-panned, literally in some cases. There has been a muted but present cultural push for a while now to reduce HIV stigma, primarily by linking it up with homophobia and demanding that anti-homophobia include anti-serophobia. For example, in 2019, there was an HIV-positive sperm bank launched specifically to reduce stigma, and I do not know how they thought this would be a good idea. Like, okay, you've drugged up these dudes so much they cannot pass HIV through their sperm. Even if there's zero chance of a baby being born with HIV, and there's not, the article admits as much, just a very low chance, who in their right mind would even do this? Just go to a normal sperm bank. Reducing stigma is not so important a goal that any sane person would risk something like this. Or how about this article from 2018? Your sex life doesn't stop after HIV. In fact, it gets better. Maybe it should stop, At least the risky part of it. The doctor was a stern-faced woman with blonde hair and a golden cross dangling around her neck. She said HIV slowly, with a deep southern drawl. I was living in Georgia and completing my last year of college. Over the next 6 months, I became very depressed, but eventually, the fog lifted, thanks primarily to sex. Why didn't you fucking stop, dog? Please tell me you at least use protection. Today, I have no fear of my HIV. It's a part of me, a part that has connected me with sexy and powerful queer people. The unity between those of us who share this disease is unbreakable. We are activists and politicians, performers and artists, porn stars and proud sluts. My best sex came post-diagnosis. You know, I understand the scientific reality behind taking this medication and becoming undetectable, with a very, very low chance of transmission. I get it. It's a technological miracle that reduces suffering for these people and all the rest of it. But personally, I will always be what this guy calls pause-phobic. I will never want to date someone with HIV. And you know what? That's okay too. It is insanity to think that you can push off the downstream effects of the risky behavior that you engage in onto the future people that you meet who reject you for that behavior. That rejection is totally normal. It is that lack of responsibility that permeates this whole discourse, and to be frank, it seems to be a huge problem with progressivism, far beyond the HIV conversation. For example, whenever you talk about the abortion conversation, one common line of attack from the progressive camp is that pro-life people don't want the government to actually care for the babies that are being born. Or how about in the climate change conversation? This is a commercial from the UK.
There are so many lawful ways to get involved.
Raise your voice. Post a poster, sign a petition, paint a banner, go on a march, lobby your local MP.
Look at what this guy considers to be the solution. Raising your voice, posting a poster, going to a march, writing your local MP. These are all moves that push towards systemic change. And systemic change is important, don't get me wrong, especially for large-scale problems like climate change. But a fatal flaw of progressivism is that they always neglect the tiny personal changes individuals can do that also make things better, calling it toxic individualism, or bootstraps mentality, or capitalist culture, or whatever the fuck. Passing climate change legislation is important, but so is consuming less energy personally, or recycling your plastic. These little local changes you can do in your own life, they also have an impact. With the abortion thing, it's even more stark. Government programs that care for kids are good, of course, but so is, actually raising your fucking kids. And the same goes for the HIV conversation. You're not being oppressed by your own promiscuity if you start picking up diseases and society does not step in and save you from your own bad choices. The long and short of it is, these people do not want to hear that their actions have consequences. In fact, they consider it bigotry to hear it, because they believe that all actions are morally neutral, and they should be able to float through life doing whatever they want and facing no clapback for any of their choices, even if that means pouring a barrel of HIV-infested cum into their anuses. That is just not how the real world works. Most normal people will simply reject you if you have a promiscuous past that is this bad, or if you have HIV, or both. That's just how it is. Because the person that you are is the total of your choices and behaviors. You can rightfully be judged based on the character you've developed over the course of your life. The actions are not actually morally neutral. They are crafting your personality, both good and bad. And it is legitimate for other people to look at you and say either yes or no. These progressives are angry that they're being told no, because it means that they've behaved in such a way that it has made them lesser in character, and they don't want to hear it. It's as simple as that. Now, FemK Ultra is ultimately doing a more responsible thing than just spreading disease. She's taking PrEP. But it does say something about the type of life that she leads, that she found offensive the idea that, of the friends she fucks in her friend group, maybe she should cross the HIV people off the list, save her kidneys and the taxpayer some grief. But no, to her, these actions are morally neutral. Therefore, there's no consequence in choosing them. And society is required to subsidize that choice, both in terms of cost and affirmation. It was inevitable that she was going to take poorly the news that she was degrading herself, because that means her moral system's flawed. If there are other moral considerations that she's blind to, beyond maximizing pleasure and minimizing harm, per Jonathan Haidt, then that would mean her behavior is actually slowly turning her into a worse person over time. And you know what? That's probably pretty accurate. Consider this question. What kind of life would you have to be leading in order to be confronted with the reality that you are having so much promiscuous sex with so many people that in order to keep on doing what you're doing, you have to start taking anti-HIV medication in order to make it safe? And rather than considering scaling it back a bit, you're so desperate for human connection that you keep popping these pills and keep fucking more and more people. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to live that life. It seems pretty lonely, actually. Like you're desperately trying to fill an empty hole. I know I don't mean that one. I think this is why my tweet went viral, frankly. It's a simple question that any normal person can immediately intuit what's being asked. What is wrong with your life that you feel the need to go to these lengths? But my asking it shone a light on all of these people whose lives are empty and who didn't want to be reminded of it. However, for the vast majority of them, their lives are empty because of their own choices. And until they stop blaming people asking the obvious questions and face what they have done to themselves head on, things will never get better for them. So, I wish them the best. And you know what? I'm glad I'm not them. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to see more from me, my girlfriend Naomi and I, my monogamous girlfriend, we recently saw The Never-Ending Story in theaters. Yeah, they brought it back, and we recorded a vlog for it over on the side channel. So click that link on screen and I'll see you over there. Have a good one, guys. I love you.